Thank you all for attending. This is the Employment Training Panel's Agriculture Funding Application Support Session. This is going to be specific to our agriculture initiative, and it's to try and help people who've already started the application or potentially applied go through it to make sure that you've entered everything that you'll need to make sure that that application gets moved forward successfully. I'm Elsa Wadzinski. We have Will Salinas from our Application Assessment Unit, Jordan Fetch from our Contract Development areas, and Elise Candelaria, also from our Economic Development Unit. So the Agriculture Initiative focus, the intent is that ETP has set aside $10 million of investment for a larger effort with the Labor Workforce Development Agency and upskilling farm workers. The funding is for single employers or multiple employers. Now, ETP's multiple employer contracts are generally capped at $750,000, but in this instance, we are allowing an additional $250,000 to take them to a $1 million cap. But that additional $250,000 to get to the $1 million cap has to be set aside specifically for the agriculture initiative focus. Next would be the eligible agriculture employers. And I'll toss that over to you, Jordan.
Thank you, Elsa. Yeah, so this is more ag specific, agriculture initiative specific. So we are targeting companies or employers that have the NAICS codes right here that are listed. And we're also including on a case-by-case basis other NAICS codes, but we're generally focusing on agriculture related, so food packing, food processing, irrigation, and fishing industries. So if you have a question about your NAICS code, reach out, ask us, we'll look into it. Generally with that, we want a description of, how you're related to agriculture, and just a company description along with it. Another reminder here too is if you or your participating employer, or if you plan on training employers represented by a union, to just submit a union letter of intent and support along with your application. All right, so with everything ETP, we want to focus on frontline workers. So in this ag related, it would be farm workers, packers, processors. Other occupations can be trained, but we'd like to focus on these frontline occupations. Just some additional information on seasonal workers. We do have a seasonal worker occupation that is subject to different guidelines. So first off, the employers who are eligible must be working in crop production and have one or more cycles of crop production. And also the workforce has to expand by at least 50% based on those cycles. And year in, year out, they must retain at least 50% of the same employees for no less than 500 hours in the 12-month period preceding the end of training. So during training, then the trainees can be either employed or unemployed, but they must be engaged in this type of seasonal employment related to crop production once again, and they must meet the retention of the 500 hours in the 12-month period. So that's an alternate retention for these seasonal workers. And also too, in addition to that, 50% of this training for the seasonal workers can be in literacy skills. So yeah, like I said earlier, we do have an alternate retention for these seasonal workers. It is 500 hours within 12 months at the end of training. And also for wage, they are eligible for reduced wages. It would be our HUA wages, but we do need to see wage progression. So during retention, the wage needs to increase by at least 3% in order to be eligible for this 25% of the wage reduction. Another thing that's specific to this ag initiative is the need for training section. So good proposals will highlight how training is upskilling workers. And we want to see trainees be able to work in high quality jobs and also attain higher wages with this training. Another thing to focus on too is opportunity for advancement or pathways for promotions, and also encourage worker voice. So a good application would have all four of these spoken for. I would recommend going through and just getting information based on this application. You can register on the ETP website. The application's right, or the link's right here, with the company. So you can delegate a admin person who is overseeing training for the contracts. And then once you submit the application and submit, it'll be in CEF, so the CaliForce website. And then right here's the data needed to complete the application. So this is a great page to refer to if you're gathering information. So number one is the California Employer Account Number and your NAICS code. Number two is your legal company name. And if you have multiple locations, um, you want to address all your locations that will be included in ETP training. This next bullet point is exclusive to this agriculture initiative. Like I spoke to before, we want to see how you're going to upskill workers, provide good quality jobs, uh, and pay sustainable wages. Another thing is opportunity for advancement and encourage worker voice. Our panel really wants to see that. Trainee occupations. So this is information that you need. Number of trainees in each occupation, an estimated number of training hours. This is important, and I know there's some trainees who you're going to train more, some trainees who you're going to train less, but we want to see an average. Wage information, so the min and max wages based on the occupations for each occupation listed, and then also curriculum. And in curriculum, it would be delivery method, type of training, and course titles.
The first-time users, this is a great place to start. You know that you're going to fill out an application and you're ready to get started, to enter information and to save it for filling out the application. You can log into CaliForce right here on the CaliForce User Hub. And if you're new, you will click the Sign Up button. And if you already have your username and password, of course, go ahead and enter that with your existing company. This is also the home screen, and you could find templates, especially for the multiple employer contractors. I wanted to point out a few of the things that you'll see. So these are abundance of our templates that we have linked for you. You can click the participating employer demand list in the red arrow pointed out there, the union notice of intent template, the union support letter template. These will all be very crucial for a MEC to check out ahead of time. We recommend downloading these because once you get into the application and start filling it out on CaliForce, we will ask for the uploads. And so it would be good to have those ready ahead of time. Just a tip and trick to prepare. Now, I just wanted to give you a peek. If you click the name, participating employer demand list, or if you click the button view, then you will see that it downloads automatically onto your computer as a Word document. Now you'll click the Word document and you'll see something like this, the participating employer demand list, and you can go ahead, type that up in Word and save that. If you enter the company name for the participating employer, it's a good practice to enter the NAICS code next to the company name because, the NAICS code can help you in the future. It will indicate the out-of-state competition and priority, non-priority industry, and it will help you later in the training plan type, in the training plan section when we come to that. So keep that in mind. Back to the homepage of the CaliForce page, you will go ahead, start your application, just click the Applications tab and the Apply for Funds button, or if you're using a development subcontractor, authorize your development subcontractor. You'll also see your list of applications Once you create an application under all in draft or active applications, we have none right now, but we're about to create one. And another helpful tip, the last one that I'll give you just on the technical aspect of Kellyforce, is once you start your application, you click next, it will save all your info you've entered. And if you feel like, okay, you've already spent a good amount of time, you want to take a break, come back to it, just go ahead and click that floating X, red arrow pointing to that. And you could go out of your application and log out of Kellyforce, come back to it later and make any edits. So you don't have to do it all at once and submit it at once. Now I'd like to pass it over to Will to begin talking about application type and contractor category.
Thank you, Elise. How's everybody doing? Again, the purpose for this is that we want to make sure that whether you're new or you're coming back to us for another contract, that we have all the correct information the first time around going forward. This will eliminate a lot of back and forth. A lot of times we'll receive an application, but there's something missing. And then days, if not weeks at times, can go by just communicating back and forth, trying to determine what it is we need and making sure that we do get it. So the first screen that you'll see here, and the reason I brought that up is I'm going to discuss that here in a minute. The first screen that you see here is going to be dependent on whether or not you're applying as a single employer or as a MEC. For the purposes of this presentation, we went ahead and made it a MEC. But depending on what you choose will determine what the next screen is going forward. The reason I brought up that before, as you see here, we're using a public or a private training agency. What we see a lot of, and we lose a lot of time, sometimes weeks, is lack of information. Depending on what you choose, and in this case, like I said, for the MECs, sometimes it's going to require certain either documentation or for us to look something else up. So if you are coming in as a WIOA, let's say, people will choose that, but what we're missing when we get it on our end is whether or not you're going to be the administrator or the recipient, what the grant amount that was given is, and what are the grant term dates. The same will go if you're a professional association. So if you look on the top one, the Chambers of Commerce, if you're coming in as a chamber, you're going to need to send us articles of incorporation as well as any available operating bylaws that you may have. A lot of times we're missing this. I'd say a good 80 to 85% of the time we're missing this information. In this case, we chose a public or a private training agency. That's going to be more our community colleges. Choose a private or public training agency. No documentation is required, but we do need to ensure that you are listed and that you are approved. So in this case, the one that we chose, we're going to check the Western Association of Schools and Colleges to make sure that you are listed there and that you are eligible. Once we have that, then we'll move forward. Next screen, please. We're going to cover the contact and company info here. The next couple of screens, I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence. It's basic information. We're going to go ahead and go through it, though, because there's a couple of things that I do want to point out. As you see on the screen, anything that has that red asterisk is a required category. Please ensure that you have all that information. Not that it'll let you pass on if you don't have it, but make sure that you have it all and that it's correct. Any additional information is what we're looking for as well, and we want to make sure that it is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. In this case, if you are doing business as some other name, please go ahead and list that. We don't want to come to the point in the application where we'll start looking for everything and start going through the eligibility process and then start finding all these different things. In this case, if somebody's doing business as somebody else, that's just going to require additional work on our end. And before we even get to that, we're going to have to reach out to you to ensure that everything is true and correct. So to avoid that gap in time and for us to successfully process these, we want to make sure that all that information is there. Towards the bottom, you see where it says, oh, I'm sorry, if you can go back one, the signatory contact details. That's going to also be extremely important if you are not the one who's going to oversee all this. If you're just the person putting in the application, that's one thing. But there is going to be somebody who's going to need to legally be able to sign this contract when the time comes. That's who we want in there. Make sure that you have the names correctly spelled any title available to them. And please, if you have that email address, make sure that that's listed as well. Same for this, basic information. The only thing I will point out is, again, on the bottom where it says your website.com. Your website is going to go an extremely long way if you provide it for us. We'll be able to check certain things and we won't have to keep going back and forth to you. Make sure that the website is listed and is spelled correctly, nothing is transposed. Next one. All right, it's company information. The most important thing about this page right here, when you get to the application, whether you're new or repeat, probably the most important one is the very bottom. There, at times, we'll see somebody coming in that'll have a bunch of PEs, participating employers, from various different counties and residences. Please make sure that all of them are listed. A lot of times we'll get an application where they only decided that they wanted to list maybe 1 or 2 cities out of maybe the 10 or 12 that they're actually going to be working out of. So we want to ensure that we have all those counties listed there. Everything else, again, self-explanatory. The first on top, when you look at that primary function for the organization, the easiest way to look at it and get that information is look at your About Us section on your website, because a lot of that is going to be very similar in nature as far as what we need. The next couple, you're just answering questions. Again, all required. They have the asterisks. So make sure that they're all filled out correctly and give us the most information that you possibly can. This part is the subcontractors. So as the MEC coming in, you're going to be required, if you are using a developmental subcontractor, to put in all that information. Just ensure that, again, like everything else, we have everything listed. Everything is correct to the best of your knowledge and ability. Make sure all the questions are answered. Cost is going to be extremely important, so make sure that you list it there. If they're super nice, you see what we have listed there as far as cost. That's what they will charge you. If not, there's going to be a number that's going to be a little bit on the larger side, unfortunately. But just make sure that everything is there. It's listed. Answer all the required questions. Probably be it. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jordan to cover some more stuff.
Thank you, Will. The next section we're going to go over is individuals, industries, and also need for training. So we're just going pretty much slide by slide on the application. We want to cover everything that you're going to see. So there's going to be some slides that I'm going to go into more in detail and some slides that I'm not. You know, of course, you have a question, or if you want to go back to a slide, just go ahead and put it in the chat. We will revisit anything if you ask for it. So right up front, the first information here is super important. Provide the estimated number of individuals to be trained. I put 150 here. There's going to be 2 other spots where they're going to ask you for number of individuals or number of trainees. It's important to have these numbers match. If they don't match, when we're looking at it as a development analyst, I'm going to ask, oh, why do you say 250 trainees here and you only have 100 occupations? And it's just inconsistent, and it leads to me asking questions of, you know, and the back and forth that we're trying not to have. We want to get complete applications. This bottom section is a checklist. So just check all the industries or services that you guys are going to, you know, train. And this is when you really need to have knowledge of what kind of training you're going to target, what kind of industries you're going to target for your participating employees. All right, these questions right here are probably the most important for development. I'm going to just highlight a few of them. The first one being describe need for training. Like I said earlier, for the ag, we definitely want to highlight upskilling farm workers, enabling, you know, quality jobs, high paying jobs, opportunity for advancement or promotion, and worker voice. Also in this too, if, you know, the more details, the better. For example, if you write in here, you know, the industry targeted is going to grow, you know, a percentage, please give that percentage. A lot of times I just see growth. And if you have that growth, give the percentage, give the details, because that's what's important in a good application. Another question here to, with how to facilitate change. So this is where you highlight any upskilling. So any change that's happening in industries, any new equipment or skills that these trainees are lacking that need to be trained on, you provide any information there. But again, we just need to see details here, and the more detailed, the better for this section. The next one is services and resources. So this following couple of slides are going to be, more information of how you market to your participant employers and how you communicate with your participant employers. This first slide is asking about new hire training. I'm not going to go really into detail on the new hire program. If you have any questions, you could reach out with your analyst on this, but I don't foresee a lot of new hire programs associated with the ag initiative, so I'm not going to really touch on that here. All right, here, like I said, it's a lot of communication with your participant employers, how you're going to customize training for your participant employers. So just explain the process used to create curriculum or create course topics with your employers in mind. The next one's on how you're recruiting or conducting outreach for your participating employers. So explain the strategy to engage in existing and new employers for your projects. So how are you reaching out to them? How are you engaging with these employers? The next one would be employer organizations. Do you have any partnerships or do you collaborate with any other organizations in your community? So there we just want to know who and name them. Do you have any prior history? If you are a college or training agency, I'm sure that this is pretty easy, but just simply provide, how much training you guys conduct, what industries you specialize in. Do you have any different programs or outreach that you guys have conducted in the past? And then also your plan for administering this project. We mainly want to know who's going to be responsible for admin. Admin is a tall task, and also provide titles and responsibilities of those involved. Continued from that slide, we had to break it down into a couple. Here, they're just asking how many staff members will be involved. There is some support cost involved, so just justify why you guys are going to be requesting their support cost. So just give in detail outreach efforts, recruitment, job placement efforts. And then the next one here, again, just how you develop your ETP curriculum. It is a bit repetitive from the last question or the last page, but explain again the process of developing the curriculum and being mindful of, some of the goals that we have in this initiative. So, it would be high paying jobs, promotional opportunities, upskilling workers. Thank you. This one, pretty self-explanatory. Just the number of large employers, number of small businesses. We like to get the idea of who your participating employers are, just so it's easier for us to kind of sort out your training plan, commitment to training, and special categories.
So here we're going to see the commitment to training. And it's pretty basic information, kind of like what Jordan touched on before. I'm going to cover some things on certain screens. Some may not require anything at all. But if there is something that I want to highlight, we're going to bring it to your attention. The thing I do want to highlight here on this screen, on that very first question where it says describe the curriculum, you'll see the parentheses, see help text. Throughout the application, you're going to see those little eyes inside that circle. Please, by all means, if you have any questions, if you hover over that, that's put there to kind of help you along in the application process. It's set aside to give you little tips or information that may not be readily available in the question so that you're aware of what it is that they want you to answer in that particular question. So just kind of keep that in mind. The rest of the questions, employees, the training delivered to employees in the past. You want to describe any training services that you normally provide that's not ETP funded. Next question, you're going to want to explain how the additional funds will increase the training opportunities for your employees or for your employers, I apologize. And then the projected training start date. Next screen. Special categories. So here, again, like all the other screens, you know, they're all required. You're going to answer yes or no. You're not going to get a new screen if you answer yes to one or no to the other. Some things to highlight, though. And the first box, I apologize. You're going to describe any barriers in employment that will qualify your trainees. This is where you're going to want to list if in your training you're going to be including any kind of literacy, any kind of limited English proficiency, or any kind of limited math skills. All these are extremely important, and this is where you're going to want to highlight those. If we go down a few, do you plan on providing training to seasonal workers? In this case, based on what we're doing and the direction we're heading, yes. So you want to make sure that you put yes for the seasonal workers. The rest of the questions you're just going to answer as is. That bottom section, the other box where you're going to describe your plan for marketing, and it's asking you a lot of marketing questions, but this one is in regards to veteran or veteran services. So you want to go ahead and please include anything that you might have describing the marketing efforts made towards the veterans. Again, a lot of just yes, no, mandatory required questions. Want to make sure that you get as close as possible on that previous screen to the hours that it's asking, to the hours that are being used per trainee for each particular category when it's asking you. So in this case, if you're doing literacy skills, the estimated amount of literacy skills training hours per trainee. So you want to go ahead and put that, but keep in mind it's per trainee. Next one. Then we're going to go into occupation and training plans. So here we see a lot of issues when it comes to the occupation and the training plan section. So again, if you've done this before, you're aware. If not, for the new people coming on board, this is where you're going to want to list all your occupations. There may be one, there may be 20. But for each one, what you're going to want to do is, if you see that red arrow where it said add occupation, you're going to want to do that for each occupation. In a couple of slides here, you're going to see what that screen looks like. But as you see, this is kind of a semi-completed one. You see some different occupations. You see the trainees, hours, all that good stuff. You want to make sure that you get all that information correct once you're inputting it there. The next couple of questions is regarding health benefits and whether or not you're going to be using any of those health benefits to meet the wage requirements for the application. So this is what it's going to look like when you click that add occupation. It's going to be a lot of information that it's going to ask you for, but if you do it right the first time, then we're going to be golden. Occupation name, you're going to list that there. Estimated number of training hours, the minimum and maximum wage ranges, the current wage, and then the estimated hourly at the retention. So these are all the numbers that you're going to want to have beforehand when you're entering all this information into the application. You're going to have the wage breakdown. In this case, if you have, and we'll see, in the very bottom, you see we have an estimated number of 50 trainees. Not all 50 may be paid the same amount of money. So we just want to make sure that you break down that number and put them accordingly to each tier that you see listed here. Under 15, 15 to 20, 20.01 to 25, and then 25.01 and over. So that's where you're going to want to list them. That number will give you, it'll add it up for you at the very bottom, and that number is going to be extremely important when we get to the next couple of screens. Here, again, some more mandatory questions required. First one, the projected number of management or supervisors that you're going to train. Again, if you hover over that little I with the circle, it'll give you additional information. On this screen, the very bottom is asking you to upload a file. In this case, it is the union letter and notice of intent. This document, as well as many of the others that we require, are found on that home screen that we showed you in the very beginning under the templates menu. Now, when you see this where it says upload files, we get a lot of applications that come through and they're missing files. So what that does is it requires us to once again reach out to you guys and then ask for whatever it is that's missing or that we didn't get as part of the application. But what this is doing at this point is just wasting a lot of time that we could have spent on the application, making sure that we move it along. That way you guys can do what it is that you guys need to do. You'll see on that very bottom, again, it will reiterate it. You're going to find the union letters as well as many of the others and the templates under the template section of that home screen. So it's extremely important for a successful application to have all this stuff in the very beginning. And it's very simple. You can either drag and drop or you can upload the file. This is that continued. You're going to see it's asking for union information, the union, the local, and wage information. All that, again, extremely important, as well as how many hours do the full-time employees work per week. You're going to see that question right above that bottom paragraph. So we just want to ensure that everything that it's asking for, we have to the best of our ability and the best of our knowledge, we have those correct numbers. Once you have all that in there, easy peasy, go ahead and click that submit button on the bottom right. As you see, it's already has the application number off to the left a little bit. And then it's going to take you, once you put all that in, back to this portion of the application. This is what we saw before, where we were putting in all our occupations. That little red arrow tells you that you're not going to be able to bypass the screen until you check it. It's making sure and ensuring that you have all the information in there. On the very bottom of the screen, you're going to see the same thing. This time in regards to your union letter and notice, upload that file. Please, if you have it, upload it. It's just going to save a bunch of time going forward. Then you'll hit that next button on the very bottom. It's going to take you to the training plans. In the training plans, you're going to see where it's going to ask you a question just like this: priority industry, the plan type. You're going to see the total number of trainees and the average hours. This, we're going to see what this looks like here in the next screen, but just something to keep in mind on the very bottom where it says tip. After submitting your application, you're going to work with your assigned analyst on the 100B to ensure that the training plan is correct. So it'll make their job a lot easier and it'll move the process along a lot faster if we have this information in the very beginning. And this is what it's going to look like. There's going to be several options. In this case, for our purposes, the top two are going to be the ones we're really like working with the most, and it's going to be priority or non-priority industry. The priority and non-priority industry is going to be determined by the NAICS code. So that's why, as we told in the very beginning, if you want to check it beforehand, it'll make it a little bit easier when you get to this point in the application. To check it, as you see off to the left, you can enter the NAICS on the ETP website, and we have the link there, and that'll tell you whether you're priority or non-priority. And again, this is just all the information that you're going to want to have beforehand when completing this application so that you're successful the first time around. All right, so earlier in the presentation, Jordan had mentioned the total number of trainees and how we were going to want to keep an eye on that number. So in the very beginning, the total number of individuals that we were going to train was 150. We purposely messed this up so that you can see what it looks like. You see how it's in red, and it tells you that the estimated total number of trainees from the occupation screen is 150, but what we put in was 149. You cannot move forward on this page. The only thing you can do is go backwards. But if you don't remember where you put it, you're going to go through the entire application, back a page, back a page, back a page, looking for that number. That number that we told you in the very beginning, you're going to want to write that down, keep it handy. That way, when you get to this portion of the application, your numbers will match. It'll be in green, which you'll see here in a moment, and then we can move forward again successfully. Boom, there you have it. We went back, we corrected it, and we now are equal. We have 150 trainees from the training plan that equals the 150 that we had originally said we were going to be training. So once it's green, you're good to go. You make sure that you click that little arrow or the little box that says you confirm that you've added the training plans. Once you do that, it will allow you to move on to the next screen. And I will turn this back over to Jordan now.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we're going to just briefly go over in-kind contribution. I get a lot of questions on what does this mean? Do I have to pay this amount to ETP? The answer is no, but we just want to see how much the employer is investing in the training. When they're training, they're off the production line or they're not being productive per se um, to the company. But they're still getting paid the wages. So that is a cost to the company. Um, there's the calculation on the bottom of the screen on how you can calculate in kind. So it's number of trainees in the project. In this case, it'll be 150 multiplied by the average hourly wage of employees. Of course, you have some employees who are training that are paid more, some that are paid less. Just take the average and then times the average training hours or the estimated training hours. And from that, you will get a number that looks similar to this. Um, and then you can also add different contributions too, if necessary. But generally, this number will get you there. And also too, we want to ask if there's any other funding related to this training program. You can click yes or no. If you click yes, we're going to ask what program it is. So just list any funding sources for this particular training effort. So, and then same thing here. This one's more federal based. So enterprise zones, hiring tax credits, WIOA. You can click yes if you participate in any of those programs, and then just give details below. All right, next section is on the curriculum and electronic training documentation. So the curriculum is, I'll just say it's a beast. You have to download everything, all the course titles. This one will take a lot of time, but I think it is necessary to take your time on this. So once you get to the curriculum page, you're going to click Add Curriculum. As you see here, I have some that I already entered in just for reference, but you're going to want to click Add Curriculum. And then also too, we just want to highlight this. A lot of times I see, you entered curriculum and then you're like, oh wait, I want to enter more class titles in there. So then you'll go add curriculum again. You are able to edit or delete already existing curriculum entries by clicking this arrow button on the screen. So in that case, we want to see if it's class lab business skills, we don't need to see 3 different entries for class lab business skills. You can just add it under one entry there. So this is what it looks like when you're adding curriculum. So first you're going to pick delivery method. We have class lab, classroom laboratory, we have productive lab, and we also have computer-based training or CBT, which is more self-paced module type learning. And then you're going to click training type. From there, you're going to enter class titles. A tip for here is to put them in bullet points. So you're going to click the bullet points and start entering the class titles or the course titles. If you happen to be entering CBT, we do need the average time the modules take and a list of the modules here. So this is a good example of a CBT entry for that. If you have a CBT that's longer than 5 hours, we want to see it broken down into modules here. So say the example is CBT class 4, which is 6 hours. And then you have different modules here. Just because sitting in front of a computer for 6 hours taking a class is pretty demanding. So generally they are broken down into modules so they can finish one and then come back later. Below, just give a brief overview of the training. Here we want to see emphasis of this training and the expected outcomes. These trainees will gain the following skills and it will better help them do, what specific of their job. And then you can click, the occupations that this training will be offered to. Once you're done adding all the curriculum, you're going to click this checkbox here, and that's just going to let you move on to the next page. but I would just definitely spend a lot of time on here, work with your participant employers, and make sure that you guys are including course titles that is relevant to the industry, um, and just holistically, I guess, valid there. So the next screen will be percentage of allocation. So this one, you're just going to estimate what you're going to spend most training on compared to what you're going to spend least training on. I do want to highlight literacy skills here. You're allowed 50% for seasonal workers for literacy skills. A cool feature here is it will give you a running total. So we intentionally did 99%, and it'll give you a little, it won't let you save until you're at 100%. And I think the next screen shows that. Yep, so you're at 100% here, so you could save and then go on to the next. All right, and then if you're going to use an electronic training documentation or an LMS system, it's going to ask you yes or no here. I think the next page we clicked yes, and it'll be a drop down of additional questions. So a little small here, but if you click yes, it's going to give you information. We just want to gather information on your LMS system. If you do want to use an LMS system, we will ask for a tour or a meeting where you kind of walk us through the LMS system. We just need to make sure that it meets all the requirements of ETP record keeping. So in addition to this questionnaire, we will ask for a meeting and approve it based off that meeting. By then, your application, or you can not submit it and gather more information if needed. So you can click X if you're not ready to submit. You can click Next if you're ready to submit on this page. All right, so now we have an application in the system. It is in draft status right here, so you can kind of see the NDR that's in draft. If you want to print out this application, you can click up printable view if you're more of an on-paper version, or if you want to print it out and send it out to people to review. Once you're done, you can get details here, so you can kind of review the information that you submitted on the application while it's in draft. If you want to edit the application or go in and change anything, you do have to click Edit Application on the top right screen. But then again, to related lists tab, it'll give you occupations, training plans, curriculum, and you could view it, but if you want to edit it, you need to click Edit Application. All right, and I'll hand it back to Elsa.
Wow, thank you so much, everyone. I mean, honestly, Elise, Jordan, Will, thank you so much for all the information. It is a lot, but it's really necessary. And hopefully this information will help everybody, in providing a more complete application. So what we have in this slide are some ETP resources that will help you. A lot of times you're in the midst of it and there's not always someone available to get back to you right away to help you while you're completing the application. So if you do have questions related to the system, logging in, you're having an error message or something that's system related, that would be ETP Cal eForce, and you could email them and someone will get back to you. I would ask that you include an app number if you have that, and certainly a phone number and email address so they could get back to you. Also, if you need immediate assistance, you find yourself you're in the midst of it and you really want to move forward, we also have a lot of resources on our website at the ETP Cal eForce Hub. There are user guides as well as user videos to help you through that. Also, back to the point of during the application, there's that little I in that little circle. That also will provide you with additional information if you're in the midst of doing the application and have additional questions. So the Cal eForce system is Salesforce based. If you guys are familiar with that, that might help you as well. If you have questions related to eligibility or the application status, you can contact our application assessment unit inquiry by sending them an email. Again, include your application info so they could get back to you. Questions related to the information that you need to add, kind of what we went through today, you can contact our ETP program projects unit, or the ETP Economic Development Unit. And we will be more than happy to help you with anything we can. And again, these are resources available to you. And I will say, I learned so much in this presentation overview myself, but also the user guides I've learned by utilizing those. Even when I'm trying to help someone, they're a great resource. So just keep those in mind.